Today is Saturday, September 10th. You may have strong feelings, one way or the other, about the Biden administration's recently announced plan to forgive some student loan debt. We covered the basics of the plan when it was first announced a couple of weeks ago during our daily news roundups. Today, we want to dig a little deeper into the potential pros and cons to the individuals impacted and the overall U.S. economy. So today's first guest is the Director of Economic Policy at the Bipartisan Policy Center, Shai Akabas. His areas of expertise include higher education, specifically on how we finance it. Then later, you'll learn more about exactly who is eligible for this and how to get the debt relief if you are. First, though, the benefits and consequences of canceling student loans and what other solutions might help former students, too. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Shai, thank you so much for coming on the Newsworthy.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about how this student loan forgiveness program will impact the economy as a whole. And I want to talk about the potential pros and cons. So let's start with the potential benefits of this program to the economy.
Well, this will certainly help provide relief for millions of households who have been struggling under the burden of student debt. Many of them often don't have large loan balances. They could only have $5,000, $7,000 in debt, in many cases from not completing a degree. So they didn't see the earnings bump, and they may be a fairly low-income household. And if they have these several $100s a month that they are paying on their loans, that can be the difference between even eating a meal, regularly every time that their family needs it. And so it can make a life-changing difference for those families. There are a number of categories of students who are especially underwater today. One are students who have been defrauded by their colleges where they really didn't get a degree that was worth the paper that it was written on. And then also students who attended a fairly low value college where they just were not in a program that gave them the dividends that they need in order to repay the debt that they owed. So lots of students in these categories will rightfully be getting some relief and will feel that relief in their pocketbooks in a way that will help them become more financially secure. So I would say that is probably the biggest benefit from this policy.
Is it more on the individual level than any wider economic benefit?
Well, right now we have excess demand. We have more demand in the economy than the supply can bear. And what that's created in large part is inflation, where we have inflation at 8, 9, or 10%, and households are really feeling that. So the biggest impact on the broader economy will be likely to further drive that inflation. Now, this is not the main driver of that inflation, and it's not going to have a huge impact, but putting more money in people's pockets when there's already an oversized demand for goods and services is going to lead to more of that inflation throughout the economy. And I think the biggest impact on inflation is actually going to be the continuation of the repayment pause. This is the pause that was started near the beginning of the pandemic by the prior administration, was continued by the Biden administration, and now we're more than 2 years into the pandemic, and students are still not expected to be repaying their loans. That pause was supposed to end at the beginning of September, but now it's been extended into next year. And so loans that were going to be repaid, especially for middle, upper income people who can afford to repay their loans and were going to be repaying those loans, now have more money in their pockets to spend on other goods and services at a time when demand is already relatively high. So I think that portion of the plan is actually probably the most inflationary.
So obviously the impact to inflation is one of the potential negative consequences. Any other negatives you want to mention?
Well, one other potential negative here is a massive amount of uncertainty for former students who now expect that they're going to have this amount of loans repaid, but that could all be gummed up by the legal system. Action was taken by the executive branch. The power of the purse, the power to spend money, is traditionally, constitutionally held with Congress. And there could be a legal challenge brought against this forgiveness that the president does not have the authority to wipe away debt for tens of millions of students without approval from Congress. If that happens, even if a court doesn't rule against the action, but just enjoins the action, meaning that they put a pause on it until lawsuits have been worked out, that could leave tens of millions of students in the lurch where they were expecting to receive their forgiveness. And now it'll be very unclear, do they owe money? Does the repayment pause continue for longer until the courts work this issue out? What does that mean for the whole system moving forward? So I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, what's going to happen on the legal front here, but that does put a huge element of uncertainty into this entire situation.
What about any database information about how the student loan forgiveness program will impact the average American's wallet? In other words, how is the government paying for this, and will average taxpayers see their tax bills go up?
The average taxpayer will not directly or immediately see their tax bill go up. But the short answer is that the government's not paying for this. There's no policy that the government put in place to offset this program. The estimates are that this is going to be somewhere on the order of $500 billion or more that we are adding to the national debt. And ultimately, someone has to pay that back. So either other programs are going to have to receive less spending as a result, or more Americans are going to have to pay taxes, higher taxes as a result.
Taking a step back from this loan forgiveness program, what is the impact of student loans in general on the economy?
I don't think there's any uniform impact that student loans in general have on the economy. It adds to household debt, which can be a drag. But in general, if students are attending school and completing school and getting the earnings bump that comes along with that, it's really an investment. And higher education should be viewed that way. We should think of college as bettering an individual's ability to provide for themselves and their family and obtaining skills that will help them throughout their career. But some schools are doing that and some schools aren't doing that. And we need to have a better sense of which schools are performing well and which schools aren't. And it's holding institutions accountable for their outcomes, because when students are attending those schools that are not worth the paper, the degrees are not worth the paper that they're written on, we need to make sure that those schools are not getting a funnel of student loan money into their coffers in the future, because that's just going to continue the same practices that we've seen in the past, where students are left in the lurch and taxpayers are left holding the bag. So that's really the focus that we need to have in order to improve this system into the future and make sure that it is the economic benefit that we intend higher education to be.
Next up, who exactly can access this loan forgiveness and how they will get it? Plus, if you've already paid off your student loans, a refund may be in the cards for some people. We'll explain. We're getting answers from financial coach Meagan Landress, a certified student loan professional with the company Student Loan Planner. That's still to come. But first, a quick break to thank our sponsors. The Newsworthy is brought to you by ZocDoc. At this point in a lot of our lives, trying to fit in one more thing onto our calendars can feel like a game of Battleship or Tetris. And that can be especially true trying to align with your doctor's office. I've experienced it many times. I call to make an appointment, and then it's 3 or more months before I can get in at a time that works for both of us. And now that I have a kid, I have to figure that all out for his appointments too. Well, ZocDoc helps make it easier to find and book an appointment with a doctor that suits your needs and your schedule. And ZocDoc is free. It's a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. I also appreciate that you can read verified patient reviews. Every month, millions of people use ZocDoc, so simply go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by Indeed. I know you like to save time and get what you need in one place and fast because you listen to this show. So if you're a business owner and you're hiring and you want to speed up the process, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You can find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. And just like me, I'm sure you'll appreciate a platform that makes completing an important task easier. Indeed knows that when you're doing everything for your company, you can't afford to overspend on hiring. Visit Indeed.com/newsworthy to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/newsworthy. Indeed.com/newsworthy. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Okay, now to my conversation with Meagan Landress. Meagan, thank you for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
Thank you for having me today.
So first, break it down for us. Who is eligible for loan forgiveness under this plan?
There's an income limitation. So for single individuals, if you make less than $125,000 as of last year's taxes, then you will be eligible. For households, it's under $250,000. And these are only for federal student loans. No private student loans will have this cancellation available to them. And the amount on how much you get canceled depends on if you had Pell Grants during your education or not. And you could tell if you've had a Pell Grant by logging into studentaid.gov. And if you were awarded Pell Grants during school, you'll get up to $20,000 of cancellation. If you were not, then you'll get up to $10,000 of cancellation.
And for anyone who doesn't know, what's a Pell Grant?
A Pell Grant is something that's awarded through FAFSA. It's a federal grant that you're given that you don't have to pay back. It helps reduce the cost of going to school, and it is for extraordinary financial need. So if you were in that position going through school, then you may have had a Pell Grant. Does this program apply to graduate school loans? It does, yes. If you still have federal student loans outstanding, then yes, you can get up to $10,000 or $20,000 of cancellation. So it doesn't really matter if you were an undergrad or a graduate student, this is available to you as long as you are under the income thresholds as well. What about those who finish paying off their student loans within the past couple of years? Can they get refunds? Are there any options for them? At this time, as we know for sure, you can definitely get a refund if you've paid on your federal direct loans since the COVID forbearance started, March 13th of 2020. If you've made any payments, you can call your loan servicer and ask for a refund and get that money back at no penalty. We, of course, have not seen this work yet because this was just announced, but it should work based on how the rules are stated right now. And I think it would be eligible for the cancellation. You just have to get the refund first. And just to be clear, if you paid before that date that you said in March of 2020, this does not apply to you. Correct. If you had paid off your loans before March 13th of 2020, then you cannot get a refund back for those loans, and thus you will not be eligible for the cancellation, unfortunately. Okay, so for those people who do think that they are eligible, how do they apply? How do they get this? And are there any deadlines in place yet? The Department of Education is coming out with an application that they're going to post on studentaid.gov. It sounds as if that's going to happen in October. And then it sounds as if they want you to apply by November 15th of this year, 2022, to get the cancellation. Have you had to talk to anybody about being eligible for these loans or having missed out on the opportunity because they already repaid them? Like, what is the sense among people who have student loans right now? There's two sides of this conversation. I think there's a lot of folks that are really happy about it, really excited about it. They know it can impact a lot of people. There's the other side that may have missed out, so they're a little grumpy about it, which that's understandable, or feel like it shouldn't have happened maybe in the first place. One thing that's a little interesting, and what I think is a little unfortunate, is the cancellation is less impactful to those who are pursuing public service loan forgiveness. That's a program where you pay income-driven payments for 120 months, and whatever balance is left over is forgiven if you're working full-time in a public service capacity, which is great. It's a shorter timeline. It's a great opportunity for those working in government or nonprofit. But if they have $10,000 or $20,000 shaved off their balance and it wasn't going to pay off the loans, let's say they had, $80,000 left, that doesn't impact them at all because the balance doesn't dictate what the income-driven payment is, the income does. So those that are pursuing PSLF really didn't benefit from this cancellation at all. What's the best way for people to stay updated, whether it's that plan, whether it goes through, whether it's a change with the current plan, obviously paying attention to the news, but beyond that for their specific situation? Certainly make sure your contact information is updated with studentaid.gov. That is the hub of all things federal student loans, and that's where you'll get notified of these changes. And you could always take a look at the website too. They usually have the most relevant newsworthy things at the homepage that you can click on and learn more about. And a quick explainer for you about the part of our conversation that focused on Pell Grants. As Meagan said, Pell Grants are rewarded to students for financial need and generally do not need to be paid back. However, the reason Pell Grants are included in this loan forgiveness plan is because if a student drops out of college, then they are expected to return the grant money. Okay, so thank you to both Meagan Landress from Student Loan Planner and Shai Akabas from Bipartisan Policy Center for stopping by The Newsworthy and helping us tackle this topic. To get even more analysis or guidance from them, check out the links in our episode notes. And if you have a friend who might find all of this information helpful, be sure to text, DM, or email them a link to this episode.
And as always, listen to our regular 10-minute news roundups for updates on this and a bunch of other news stories of the day, available Monday through Friday. So we'll be back on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.